season with, you know, not what people were expecting him to do, really. I mean, he had played decks that just weren't expected, Ben decks, basically.
Yeah, he's quite an unorthodox player, so it's quite hard to judge exactly what he's going to come up with and what he's going to do. Especially with his decks as well. He's not brought anything control-related, no Taunt Druid or Warrior or any Mani Druid, anything like that. So I'm quite surprised in terms of his from position that he's brought these kind of decks in. So we'll have to see exactly how this is going to play out.
Yeah, and we do see that Ben's opened with Murloc Mage and Jambre has Paladin. Now, Jambre been a champion of Paladin sort of forever, basically. That's sort of his favourite class to play. I think he probably has more wins on Paladin than I have wins total. We can see Ben's got a pretty good curve for this. He's hit his 1-drop. He's got a 2-drop in hand if he can't find a Murloc to buff that. So going first in these tempo matchups matters so much to curve perfectly.
Yeah, it's weird, these Mani decks in recent years as well. Like, I think I must have hit my 500 win mark straight off the bat back in 2015, 2016 with that Secret Pally back in the day. And literally, I think I just got it all from that one season as well. So, yeah, he's probably got, but even saying that, he's probably got like 10 times more wins than I have with my Pally compared to his in that extent. But from the look of things, not too bad in terms of mulligan for Jambre from what I can see from him. Yeah,
and this is actually really interesting for Jambre, recognizing that, you know, the 1-2 and the 1-3 both line up pretty badly into this 1-2. If Ben has a Rockpool Hunter, which is quite reasonable, Ben did keep another card in his hand. It's kind of the perfect card you would keep. Jambre trying to figure out how best to deal with that. And he might even coin out the second 1-drop here, which it looks like he's going to do, which makes sense when he's got the Blessing of Might in hand and looking to trade up next turn.
I feel like in some way there's a possibility that the Murloc Mage in this matchup can struggle a little bit, but with his Megasaur as well, at least it will help him to an extent where he can give his minions +3 health to maybe take out some of the board, especially with the silver hands. But looking at this now, it's going to be extremely difficult for him, but maybe if he does get that mage weapon later on, it probably will help him a lot more throughout this series to keep up with the odd Pally. But we'll have to see how he goes from here.
Yeah, we can see here Jambre just recognizing that he needs to just not let the early board snowball, get control of it, because his hero power grinds out the mage hero power way better. So if he can just keep trading up here, you know, getting the Blessing of Might and value trading here, forces the mage to either ping next turn, which the mage really doesn't want to be doing, or trading the Murloc in. Jambre even thinking about taking the bump here preemptively. Probably will opt to just go face, but, you know, Jambre is a pretty smart guy. If he trades, I'm going to take his word that trading is correct.
Yeah, I don't blame him for trading at all, and of course throwing out all of the minions he has in this matchup, because he wants to try and get as much of that Divine Favour as possible, even if he does get the opportunity to use it, because you've got to remember the fact that looking at Ben's cards now, he's got 2 Megasaurs, but he won't be able to really make much use of him these next couple of turns. So Jambre's Divine Favour isn't really going to be much use either unless Ben keeps those Megasaurs, and depending on what he gets in these next couple of turns.
Yeah, definitely. And Jambre kind of recognizing that with this Divine Favour, he does just need to play all the cards from his hand. Looks like he's thinking about the Raid Leader this turn, which obviously gives him a couple of great trades. And that kind of helps the Divine Favour maybe get a little bit more value. You really don't want it in these kind of matchups, though. And I believe Jambre was only playing 1, so kind of unfortunate to draw it in the matchups where you just really don't care about that Divine Favour. Because obviously we can see here that after this turn, it's going into Ben's turn 4 where a Megasaur probably comes down, and the Raid Leader lines up pretty poorly into the Megasaur. And obviously you don't really want to be missing hero powers as Odd Paladin when, you know, you've built your deck around upgrading your hero power.
Yeah, you made a very interesting point as well, is the fact that when he does put that Megasaur down, Jambre's going to realise that Ben hasn't got many options in this matchup. And even if he does put that Megasaur down, Jambre can easily trade with his weapon and of course with the minion on the board, but does he want to play it too early? That's it. But then again, even if he does, then he can maybe make some kind of use of that Divine Favour, but only make use for 1 or 2 cards.
Yeah, obviously Ben's deck's a super low curved deck. The double Fungal Mancer in hand might actually mean that Jambre just wants to fit in the hero power here. Let Ben start trading this, because Ben doesn't want to leave this Raid Leader on board. It's a trade that he's maybe going to have to make. There's no real punish for leaving a Megasaur on board. It's not got the Murloc tag itself. And Ben just going to opt to play all the 1-drops in a ping, it looks like.
I don't blame him at all. And of course, now I was talking about that Divine Favour earlier, it's going to make it a completely dud card, absolutely useless as of what's happening. Maybe if Ben had his weapon, then it would come a little bit more in handy. But look at Jambre's hand now. He's got 2 Fungal Mancers, but he's got nothing to play with, depending on what happens in the next couple of goes.
Yeah, this is super rough for Jambre. Whenever you fall behind on board as Paladin against these kind of decks that they're quite parasitic in the sense that they just buff their own board and they just care about their own tribe. It's really hard to come back. So here we even see that Jambre, recognizing that this 5-2, even though yes it does more, it's less of a potential threat than the Murloc being on board as a 2-2.
The problem is though, with this Fungal Mancer as well, of course Ben will manage to clear the board, so at least he keeps the minions there, at least healthy enough to stay on for another turn, but the problem is, it would have been a lot easier for him if he had 7 mana, but he's just on the outside of it, and he knows as well that it's going to be quite problematic. He can maybe play now a couple of those minions, but it's going to be extremely difficult for him because you've got to remember as well as the fact that with that Fireball as well, Ben's going to get much closer to lethal than he expected.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we can see 6 on board after the Fireball and the mana 1 buff. That's 7, and the ping is 8. Setting Jambre to 9 when you have big minions on board that can't be left alone. It means that if Ben can find, an Alunith or a Book of Spectres or something to just refill his hand, then he's going to be able to get the win. But, Jambre has got more cards than Ben here. He can maybe just get a Fungal Mancer again next turn after he, uses one to buff this Corridor Creeper. And if he's able to, do that 2 turns in a row, he might just outgas Ben. But the second Fireball, not what Jambre is going to want to see. Ben recognizing that he just needs to push here, go for the damage, set Jambre to 3, and the Fireball's going to be lethal, and that's going to be game over for Jambre. Yeah,
we were going to say Ben did need an answer. Of course, he could have ended it straight away if he had 8 mana there and then, but it looks like for now, Ben definitely came in with a bit of luck from there. I think it would have been a lot harder for him. I think he would have struggled going into this, even though Jambre didn't have much HP from there on. I think he would have just had a bit of a hard time just keeping some of these minions on board, but this Fireball's obviously helped him massively with that lethal, and Jambre's going to find out in this next turn, but sadly that will be the first loss for him in this series.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, Jambre just trying to make the best possible play that sets up the quickest return lethal, basically. But obviously, we can see the Fireball in hand, no healing in the Paladin deck, and Ben able to get it done in a pretty unfavourable matchup.
Yeah, I was quite surprised because, don't get me wrong, when I saw that first Fireball, my first thought was, well, you know what? If he plays it with a Mana Worm and, of course, the Mega Saw, then he only needs about 5 or 6 damage left to deal with. And that second Fireball definitely made it for him. So, quite quick. It definitely favoured in the odd play respect in terms of the situation. Because it's like we said before, with the Murloc Mage, if he did have his weapon, then things could have been completely different in terms of the tempo. The Mage wouldn't run out of steam as much. But yeah, a bit quicker than I expected. But that second Fireball, yeah, wow. Yeah,
definitely an unfavourable for Ben, so big relief for him to get that one through. That's kind of maybe the hardest deck that he would have to get through here. I mean, it was kind of unfavoured against everything in Jambre's lineup except the Mali Druid, so obviously Paladin, pretty rough for still pretty good for Jambre, obviously rough to lose that matchup, but Ben has got Miracle Rogue in his lineup still, so yeah, still got Miracle Rogue. Sorry, I was getting confused at the bands on the screen.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, still got Miracle Rogue, which is another super favoured matchup. Ben's going to need to find preps and Vanna Knives to, to have big tempo swings, and that's just doesn't happen that often against Paladin. They kill you pretty quickly if you leave minions on board.
And it's the next issue as well, is the fact that with Ben, I think it would be questioning whether he wants to play Zoo next or not, because of course with Odd Pally, they can get the ball a lot easier, a lot more quicker, especially if he doesn't have the Flamers or anything like that. And I think he does realise that, so at least from now, so he will be going with that Death Rattle Hunter.
Yeah, and we can see Jambre's going first again well, not again, but going first this game. Ben, pretty rough hand here, not really sure whether he wants to keep the chain gang or not. I think typically you don't want to keep the chain gang, even against Paladin, although it seems pretty good. Cards like Firefly are just so much more important. The Argus as well, I believe, was a one-off for Ben. Just check. Yeah, that was a... oh no, Ben has got a 2 Argus list, which does help with these matchups. It means that now he's got a pretty reasonable curve. He can Firefly on 1, Tracking Flame Elemental on 2, into Egg Argus on 3 and 4. It's kind of what Ben needs to be able to win these unfavourables. Yeah,
I'm glad Ben did actually play Death Rattle Hunter, because it's like I spoke before just now, it's the fact that if he chose Zoo, then he will be again in another unfavourable matchup, and it's going to be just a real struggle, and he's not going to have any fireballs to at least help him from there on. But I've seen some weird things in the past, but so far from what I've seen in Ben's mulligan, it's not too bad, but of course with Jambre now, at least he's got enough dudes to put on the board.
Yeah, definitely, and we can see that Jambre's got a pretty early aggressive hand, so going to be quite upset this Firefly comes down. Just makes it a little bit more awkward. It means that he can't try and snowball the first Lost in the Jungle here into perfect curve into something like a level up or a fungal man. So it means that Ben's going to be able to have some trading power here.
And of course, as well as trading, like I said before, he will use that tracking, but he does have advantages if things get a little bit out of hand. And this is a difficult one as well, because you can use the candle shot to at least take out any silver hands which come on board. He's got the Kelisef to give him that extra advantage, maybe slowly towards the late game, but another Argis as well to keep those taunts up to make sure that Jambre doesn't go too far into this game and have too much ball control. So it's an extremely, extremely difficult choice to make, but what would you make? What kind of choice? It's another difficult one, isn't it?
Can I have all three? That's kind of what I'm thinking, looking at this.
Technically, he does have all three.
Opting to go with the Kelisef, so this means there's no second Argus now, and one candle shot is down as well.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we can see that Jambre's got an Acaris Veteran here, so he's going to be able to just trade up one minion into this. So, you know, Ben maybe not considering that as a punish, or maybe he did and just decided that it's worth the risk if he has the Acaris Veteran. It's okay, or maybe just not even caring that that's really much of a punish. Jambre making the interesting play, obviously, to just go completely all for face here.
Yeah, I suppose even with that Kelisef, he can take out the odd silver hands here and there for 2 turns. And yeah, I think he's going to be extremely happy with that Kelisef as soon as he gets that chain gang straight afterwards. And he's got an Argis anyway. So I think having 2 Argis would have been not pointless, but because he's already got one already, he doesn't really have to worry too much about in terms of what's going to happen. Because if he does have a second one, there might be that potential opportunity where he doesn't have any minions on the board to maybe stop another one from happening. But that chain gang is going to be extremely, extremely useful for him, especially in this next couple of turns.
Yeah, Jambre's not going to want to see that, and the Argus as well. This is kind of the best possible start Ben could have hoped for, I think. Having the Firefly, the Argus, the Egg, and then hitting a chain gang after you Kelisef. It's kind of just the perfect hand, really. I mean, Jambre not having... You can see there's no Fungal Mancer or level up this time around. He's obviously going to be able to build quite a big board here, which is with Hero Power filling in 7 minions, and then might even choose to play a Blessing of Might this turn, but you're going to get the bad news about that buff chain gang coming in.
Yeah, he's not going to like that at all, and it's going to be a huge problem. Of course, he won't use the Argus right this second. I assume he will use that chain gang, but one thing you've got to point out as well with Jambre's hand, it's not looking the best. He's got a Vine Cleaver and Baku, but it's, you know, you won't even need to use that for at least turn 7, turn 9. It's going to be a while until we'll make any kind of play, but of course, Ben is still worried about that level up and, of course, that Fungal Mancer for later on. But luckily for him, Jambre doesn't have either on turn 5. So as soon as Jambre does play the Blessing, he's going to realise now that he actually doesn't have anything to at least bulk up any of his minions on board.
Yeah, definitely. We can see here Jambre is just having to trade into these, knowing that, you know, going to have to get through him sometime. May as well do it now. Clear up board space and then be able to refill on the board. Ben, obviously, still with the Argus, is in a pretty good spot. And he's got the Mossy Horror as well. So if Ben can get to turn 6 here, that Mossy Horror is just going to clean up the board and put Ben in a massively favourable state.
Yeah, it's a shame for him, just the fact that his Prong to Death Rouse is come a little bit too late, but you can use it for later on in the game. But as I assumed, he will use that Firefly and the Argus to taunt up his minions. We'll assume he won't take out the 4-1 straight away, but at least that way, we will need to trade at least 2 minions to get rid of one of them. But it's going to be extremely difficult for this time end. But you got to remember, if Jambre does survive until later on in the game, at least he's got the Vine Cleaver to kind of get a little bit more ball control with more of the silver recruits. But it's not looking too great for him so far.
Yeah, it's just going to be rough for Jambre when the Mossy Horror comes down on turn 6 for Ben into something like a Sylvanahheim in play dead, you know, just getting more minions on the board and pushing the damage. It's definitely interesting that Ben thinks about trading here. He could definitely, there is an argument with this kind of hand, knowing that you're going to clean up this board anyway, to just push the face damage. You know there's no level up in hand. Fungal Mancer was very unlikely because that didn't come down last turn. So I think there's a very good argument just for going face here and pressing the issue.
It was quite funny because last game he had 2 Fungal Mancers and he didn't know what to do with himself. He was just like, you know, I've got minions on board, but now it's the opposite way around. He's got so many minions on board, but he can't at least level up or fungal them in any way, shape or form. And of course, with the Protector, it's not going to be too much for him. And I think Ben's going to get even more of a read, knowing that Jambre hasn't got anything to play. He's probably made the assumption now that it probably will be a Vine Cleaver and Baku in his deck.
Yeah, I mean, Ben there hitting a 1-1 down is just so good for Jambre, really, because, I mean, we kind of knew there wasn't a level up anyway. It played around exactly a top deck level up, but it just gives Jambre so much more time every time Ben trades a minion instead of pushing the issue. Ben obviously thinking, I've got a hand that's going to let me do that with the Mossy into the high main play dead, but definitely good for Jambre because obviously it was quite clear that he didn't have the answer, or the punish rather. And
this is the thing as well, because of course with Jambre, sorry, with Ben for example, he knows that he's in a very good spot, but with Jambre as well, he knows that the hand's got no AoE, so it doesn't matter how many minions he puts on the board, there's nothing much he can do. And speaking of that, he managed to clear the board anyway, so puts Jambre even in a much harder spot, but at least it makes Divine Cleaver more viable. It gives more meaning to it, because before he had a full board, and even he had Divine Cleaver back then, it wouldn't have made too much of a difference considering his hero power and obviously the weapon power as well, getting 2 more recruits out. But as you can see from here, Ben can easily play that high main and of course play dead afterwards, so he's going to have a 6-5 with 2/2/2s on the board, so it's going to be in a very healthy spot, and I think Jambre is going to start to realise now that things are going to look pretty bleak, mate.
Yeah, and then Ben being able to follow this up with a Houndmaster Shaw, Terrascale Stalker and Firefly to just rush trade off all these minions is just absolutely incredible for Jambre, for Ben rather. Horrible news for Jambre, who not going to be pretty happy about this.
This is the kind of problem we had as well as the fact that if he had Devil's Sword X and he had 2 of them, that he probably would have used that play dead a lot earlier, probably around turn 4. But it seems like now that it's a good thing he didn't, because at least he managed to make much more abuse on the ball control, and you make some use of that Savannah high main as well as leaving out the board as well. But even with Divine Cleaver now, Jambre is really struggling to think of any way out of it. But I think he's starting to realise that there's only so much he can do. And even next turn, Ben's got the option to trigger the death route again, so it's going to really question what he can actually do in terms of a comeback. And even with that Leroy now, it's going to be barely of any use.
Yeah, I mean, we can see here that Jambre picking up a, you know, obviously the Baku's not great, but having the Leroy as well, when Ben's still on 23 health, it's just really not the arcane, sorry, the Divine Favor that Jambre was looking for there. And you can see this rush turn's just absolutely huge. And to be honest, this is probably going to seal the game for Jambre. We might even just see a concede pretty soon.
I wouldn't blame me if he did. If I saw that board, I'd be like, all right, next game.
Ben's even picked up the Hunter's Mark. If a Baku comes down next turn.
Yeah, the one card, which actually has quite a lot of health as well, is going to get done for straight away. So literally, Ben has, the last 5 or 6 turns, has had an answer to everything he's done. And I think Jambre is starting to realise now, sadly for him, just could be game set. And sadly for him, straight off the bat 2-0. So, and of course, we spoke about before, both these guys are 0-1 in the standings, and a win here is extremely important. And if anything goes 0-2, it's going to be such hard work to get into that top 8. But Jambre is not completely out of it yet, because we know this odd pally can make some work with some of the other matchups.
Yeah, and obviously Ben's going to have his Miracle Rogue left, which is kind of the deck that Jambre is just pretty good against. Jambre has a Zoolock, a Paladin, obviously his Odd Paladin, and a Mali Druid as well, which are all pretty fair. Like, they're all fair matchups for the Mali, sorry, for the Odd Paladin and basically all of Jambre's lineup. And so Jambre is definitely not out of this, even if he does manage to lose this game. Ben's obviously just in an excellent position here, kind of having premium options off of this. Especially with high mains, Houndmaster Shaw still on board.
Yeah, sadly for him, that level up just came way, way too late, and I think he realised that as well. There's only so much he can do. He pretty much is delaying the inevitable, and we probably will see him tap out at some point. But it was a shame because, it's like I said before, the first game, you know, didn't really have much ball control, but had the fungals and the level ups he needed. But with this time as well, he had all the minions on the board, but nothing until it was way, way too late. But to have those 4 cards and not get any of them within the first 15, 20 cards which he drew was quite shocking, to be fair. It's not been the luck on his side's not been really too great considering the circumstances.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, obviously, Ben had an insane start. He had the Firefly into the Keleseth, into the top deck chain gang. It's kind of all you could ask for in that deck, really, especially, you know, against that matchup. He didn't want to keep the chain gang, and then just it paid off just getting the buff version. So
Yeah.
Really, really good for Ben.
It's just the fact that KLSF as well, when I saw that chain gang come straight afterwards, I was just like, not like this.
It's a one-off chain gang as well. He's not even running 2 of them, so the fact that he just drew the perfect card after playing the KLSF was just really sort of cemented how that game was going to go for Ben, I feel. I
felt like with Ben as well, like, I thought to myself, you know, he's going to smirk a little bit. He's going to be laughing, thinking, I've only got 1, and out of all the times to get a KLSF and then get the chain gang straight afterwards, I thought to myself, he'll be laughing a little bit. But yeah, he was still really serious about it, thinking, no, I've got to, you know, be focused and all that stuff. If that was me, I'll probably be the person out laughing, dancing around and stuff. But it's one of those situations, really. But end of the day, you know, it's not too late for Jambre, like we said before. With the, if he does stick with that odd pally, which I assume he probably will, considering the circumstances, which he has done, then these next matchups will be a lot easier for him. Now, as you know, with Ben, he does still have that zoo as well, but the problem is the fact that will Jambre actually get these fungals and these level ups at decent timings when he gets ball control? Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of... Rogue just struggles to deal with the white ball. We see Ben keeping the fan and knives, and he has the preparation. So this is actually just the nuts again for Ben. No! And it's, there's not really much more to say. Like, if you were picking... Oh, this is disgusting for Ben. If you were picking a hand of 4 cards against Paladin, this is it. And Jambre is obviously going to get the bad news in a few turns as he realizes what his first 4 cards were. I'll just be laughing. I'll just be like, what more do I need? You know, all of those circumstances. Like I said before, he's got a fan and knife, so if the ball gets a little bit out of hand before he does have that level up or fungal mancer, because you've got to remember he does have coin, then he can do that turn 3. He's got the fug just to be a bit of a pain in the backside in terms of having some kind of board with a decent minion. And yeah, like you said, with the Strider as well, it's given enough spiders to keep him going. But it wouldn't surprise me now, the amount of luck he's had in terms of his card draw, his mulligan and his curve, the spiders will probably come out quite quick. Jambre here actually making quite an interesting play where he's deciding to put more minions on the board that don't die to just a dagger. Obviously, he has the Blessed Maul in hand, so he wants a wide board. He knows Thug's coming down this turn, most likely. So he wants to be able to Blessed Maul and use as few minions as possible to be able to clean this up. Obviously, with the second fan, I'd be very surprised if Ben didn't just play the Thug and prep fan here. That would be my best bet of his play. It just beats everything Jambre can do. It leaves 1 minion on the board and gives you a 4/4. And it's just pretty good. It beats all the buffs. It beats any kind of mauls or raid leader play. Yeah, and Jambre's already used his coin, but of course, because he does have a level up or fungal mancer in hand, I suppose didn't feel like too much of a need for it. But you never know what happens in these next couple of turns and kind of his card draw. But I assume he will put the Thug down, will use his weapon to hit one of the 1/2s so he can map out his fan and knife straight afterwards. Yeah, Ben opting not to use the preparation fan knives here, which, given that Jambre, actually, he effectively coined out a 1/2 this turn, I think you can kind of read into he has some way he wants to buff these minions, and you've actually just given him ways to let this stick. I mean, Jambre has options now. He can just use an Acaros Veteran to kill it. He can use any kind of weapon, and Jambre actually choosing to just ignore it and go, you know, this Thug can go face. Definitely an interesting choice. Not what I was expecting Jambre to do here. Yeah, I suppose because he's using coin, he knew that he didn't have to use Fan and Ice turn 3, which is quite good for him, I suppose. But it will potentially put Strider down anyway. But it's like you mentioned before, now he hasn't got that coin, he knows that turn 4, he won't be using anything to prep those silver recruits, so he's going to see what else he can do. But we'll use one anyway to at least get rid of most of the problem. And it seems like now he's in a quite healthy spot, especially with that backstab as well. Yeah, definitely. I do still think it was actually a mistake for Ben last time, not doing it last time. I think it only let him get punished. And although interestingly, I think it actually made Jambre think that he didn't have that play, so just went in for it. And obviously, we can see here, Jambre is now drawn the level up. He has got a corridor creeper, so he might be able to get like a tempo swing back with that here. Obviously, this Thug's going to just grow pretty out of control here. Ben's already got the second fan and knives in hand. He is playing sprint as well, so he doesn't need to worry about keeping these spells in case he draws an auctioneer later. There's no concerns of that. He can just play them when he thinks they're going to be best on board. And we see Jambre just spreading wide again, hoping that he's just, you know, not going to see the second fan, and Ben's going to break the bad news to him. Shall we watch Jambre's reaction to see when he sees the second fan?
I think that's kind of what's happening here.
Yeah, look, he's actually smiling, Ben, so he knows. Wait, let's look at his reaction. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have done the same reaction. He's probably thinking 2,000 knives and he got them both by turn 5. What is going on here?
Also, just to note, he's drew the other preparation as well, even if he needed to do something else to this mana. So that's just going to be series over. And Ben takes it 3-0, winning 3 matches with what I can only describe as a filthy high roll.
Yeah. I just knew straight away when I saw, Ben, like, even he feels bad. When you feel bad about going 3-0 in that way, in 2 matches where you knew we weren't that favourable on, it was getting to that point where even Ben felt bad. And when I saw Jambre's face, I just knew straight away he's going to make some kind of reaction. He was just like, wow, yeah, what else can I do? He literally used everything he could in that kind of circumstances where to make some kind of comeback. But he had